One super topic here is gamification. I mean, we can make the banking experience much more fun.
Let's go once more on this topic of usability. I'm quite interested in this one. So if you don't offer good usability as a bank, should you still continue then to do it? Or should you just avoid having a digital banking service at all?
It would be a huge mistake if you do not leverage your data. You have to do that, otherwise someone else will use the data and make financial offerings on your behalf.
Hey, welcome Martin, and welcome to my wonderful podcast living room. Good to have you.
Hi Carsten, thanks for having me in your podcast room. It's my pleasure.
Great. And look, I was thinking about you before this interview, and I was thinking, what are the three things describe Martin very well? And one is, I think, you've been almost having 20 years, almost 2 decades of digital banking expertise in your professional life. You worked in this time too with about 100 banks. And 3, the apps and the web services and mobile services you developed probably touch over hundreds of millions of people, if I calculate correctly. And your mission is to make banking more fun. Does that describe you well?
Well, that's you nailed it, Carsten. And it was an interesting journey and still is. And of course, fun is an important element.
Excellent. And we will touch on fun again later. And we will especially look into your journey and what it entails also for the future. But let's start with the banking consumer, the customer of the bank. So look, I've been told a couple of times by banking executives, at the boardroom meetings, consumers don't really play a big role, right? It's more about risk and compliance. It's about what does the competition do? Regulation plays a big topic. Consumers not so often in the boardroom. But is it really so? Does a consumer not play an important role for a bank?
On the one hand side, banks did a lot in the past, right? I mean, if we look at all the technological advance and what banks did in user experience, now that we have mobile banking, banks at our fingertips, let's say, there is a lot they did right in the past. And I would say this is putting the user in the center of what banks do at the moment. On the other side, if we look at the potential, it's still huge. How to further personalize topics, how to offer more dedicated and more specific offerings towards bank clients. There's still a lot of potential.
So the consumer does matter.
It always matters. It's the key element, especially in human-centric systems.
Okay.
It's very important.
So then let's go a level deeper then. If you think about today's world, the digital connection of the consumer with the bank. Where are we, Martin? What is the status of digital banking today?
We've come a long way. I mean, we started in the 60s with ATMs. And you can imagine before the ATMs, you had to go for every bank business to the branch when you wanted to get money. And afterwards, you had it all around the clock available. But it took quite some time till the internet banks, and then in the 2010-ish, our team built mobile bankings in Switzerland, and this shifted also quite a lot because now you really have banks in your pocket and financial services not only at the branches or at your home at the desk, but on the go in the train or whenever you want to look into your financial services, they're available.
They're available, yes. But it's not one size fits all, right? And if you would say there's a bank that says, I want to have a superior digital banking service to my consumers, that really matters for me. What are the do's or the must-haves you would say this bank would need?
I would say what's really important is to have an outstanding user experience. You really, as you mentioned, we really have to put the client at the center of what we do. We have to do personalized offers. We have to go into more segment-specific topics. But we also have to bring financial advisory topics and make it available to much broader client base.
So extension of digital services and great user experience. Anything a bank should avoid?
I would say today it would be a huge mistake if you do not leverage your data. You have to do that, otherwise someone else will use the data and make financial offerings on your behalf. The user experience, to my understanding, is really key today. You have to be outstanding there because you have to compete with big techs and your competition out there with neobanks, online banks that really push client interfaces a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you have been focusing especially on the Swiss market, I know, right? Now the question is there a big volatility here? Do people really change from one bank to the other often? Because they don't like, for example, user experience, or they don't like the services they are getting? How do you see it?
That's quite interesting. We see that bank clients are quite sticky with their bank today, but we also see a shift in generations because what we observe is that especially the younger generation is much more flexible in terms of changing banks and having also more than one bank at the same time.
Okay, before we come to the next generation, let's go once more on this topic of usability. I'm quite interested in this one. So if you don't offer good usability as a bank, should you still continue then to do it? Or should you just avoid having a digital banking service at all?
I mean, you can build either an outstanding UX, that for sure. But then you have to compete with the giants out there, be it neobanks, online banks, or the big techs. But there's also an alternative. I mean, you can also offer no UX. You can decide not to offer digital channel. For example, like Solaris does it in Germany. They focus on banking as a service. So they focus on the back office processes, on excellence there, and leave the client interface to someone else. But I would really avoid to build a bad user experience.
Yeah. Because it goes back to your brand and how your brand is perceived in the market, right? Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, one more thing on usability. You know that accessibility plays a big role here as well, right? Many people have disabilities, less sight, especially elderly people. How to ensure this in this digital banking journey you are talking about?
It's really important to focus also on disabled people. And during the development of the latest generation of mobile banking, my team ran specific tests, including disabled people, to focus on accessibility to make sure that the banking applications are usable by deaf people, by blind people. So that's really important that also these people can access their financial information, and this answers the questions about financial inclusion.
Mm-hmm. So you use them really to make the services better, more accessible, and you get the instant feedback. Very good. Interesting. Okay, Martin, I tell you one thing. I have two daughters, 18 and 19 years old, right? They, of course, have banking apps. They have a service from the bank, and they couldn't care less. It's boring, right? I mean, they do this for the transactions, but that's it, right? And I wonder really, have banks already put the focus on this generation, the next generation that's coming now into the market, and that, of course, will also want to be delighted by banking services in the future and put their money there?
Fun fact, I also have two daughters, and I mean, they're also in the GenZ, and this is the first really digital native generation. And we observe quite some changes in expectations towards banking applications. I mean, all this topic about instant on, always available, high user experience, all these expectations rise a lot, and especially from the younger generation. What we also recently discussed, how this generation receives financial advice. And we observed, and also quite a lot of studies report, that especially the younger generation receives a lot of information, not from their banks, but from social media like TikTok and YouTube channels. So there is changing quite a lot. And the example I'd like to give here is you and me in the old days when we planned a travel, then we bought this old-fashioned paper book. You can read about the topic, about the country you want to go to. And then the next generation was using TripAdvisor. All the information was available digitally and so on and so forth. But the generation Z, again, social media, they have their influencers. They look it up on TikTok and YouTube, and they follow their influencers where they travel, what they prefer, and this helps them to find out about their preferences.
And then that brings me to the follow-up question, because what can banks then do to capture the attention of this generation? No, I mean, I can tell you, my daughters, their financial literacy is not so strong. So I think that could be an opportunity for banks, maybe. I ask you. The other thing is, you talked about usability, and that it's important for them, but it's also about the content. So how can financial services now capture their attention?
One super topic here is gamification. I mean, we can make the banking experience much more fun, entertaining, and also involve with this the future generations and make it much more entertaining, the banking experience.
Do you have a concrete example there?
A Ukrainian bank, a very nice example. They're using a cat, and the cat is following you through all your financial life. So it guides you through the onboarding process. So you see an advertisement of that bank out there, a physical ad, you can scan it, and then this runs you through the onboarding process. And then you can gain points while you proceed in the process. You can change these points for, again, physical ads, like physical merchandise article like t-shirts, where you get points again. And this opens all an incredible cycle where you detect the application, observe elements in the application. It's a lot of fun and entertaining.
Well, it sounds like fun. Sounds really exciting, especially for a consumer of that bank. And question then is, what is the business value? I mean, is it also fun for the bank?
I mean, interestingly, within 2 years, they reached a market share in Ukraine of 35%.
Wow.
And furthermore, they have an App Store rating of 4.9. And I mean, if you compare with other financial applications, that's really impressive.
So connecting consumer value and value for the bank here in this occasion. Interesting.
Of course, putting the human into the center, and this gives you good numbers.
So putting the human into the center brings me to another field I wanted to discuss with you. The topic of personalization. How to make an Amazon-like experience. Hey, I buy this, and I get these recommendations for an upsell, right? Things like this. Does that work in the banking environment?
We have recently run a couple of discussions in the financial advisory area, and we're talking about digital twins, for example. So look at your financial situation and what's important in your financial life. If we figure out we find your digital twin, that's really, really interesting to see the similarities, and you would be quite interesting how that guy decides and what helps him in his financial life. And from that perspective, we really want to improve the financial advisory topic. So there we can run a lot of stuff in the area of personalization of user-specific data. But we also, I was thinking recently a lot of combining financial advisory data with transactional data and bring that data together and use it to bring even more personalized offerings from a financial perspective to you.
Martin, that sounds really cool what you just said. On the other hand, it makes me worried. Because you talk about my personal data, past life, future life, and the bank has everything. So how do you make sure that it's really handled by the right person and doesn't get into the wrong hands?
That's a huge topic, that banks make sure that your data is only accessible by you. I have 3 answers for you. First, information security. We have been focusing a lot on cyber attacks and how to prevent them. There's a lot of knowledge around how to prevent cyber attacks. Second, it's about identity management and digital identities, that the data is only accessible by you, that we know you. We had digital onboarding, so we had your identity verified, and now it's only you who can access your data. And third is open banking. With open banking, we want to make your data accessible, but only with your consent. So with open banking, that's the next level, because we want to open the banking data under your control for other use cases, also with non-banks.
Uh-huh. So you and your team have it figured out. Very good. I'm very happy.
We make your data secure.
Very good. Martin, in this ever-evolving world of digital banking, and you have seen, as I said earlier, 20 years already, how do you keep your focus on what is important for digital banking? How do you do this personally?
Focus is a huge topic, and there's so much going on in digital banking. It's really hard to keep focus. But on the other side, it's also quite easy to focus, because we build human-centric systems. So putting the human to the center of what I do, what I care, that's my focus point. And of course, if I and my team develop application with the human in mind, we also focus on business value, and that's also the benefit for the banks.
That sounds great. And follow-on question is, what makes you tick here? Because again, lots of things happening. Is there any specific thing that really excites you in digital banking?
For me, it's a combination of the technological advance. There's so much happening in a so fast pace, and the opportunities we open to help banks and bank clients. If we bring the bank client needs and the technology together, that's what me makes ticking.
Let's look into the crystal ball. What will digital banking look like in 5 years from now? Tell me.
I see that technology will drive the future a lot. So digital banking will be even more digital, even more available, even more instant. It will be much more personal. I mean, I see digital assistants, AI assistants that help you a lot in your financial life. And also the financial advisory topic will much more be democratized and be available for many, many more people.
So quite a shift in how banking is done in the future. Well, Martin, thank you. That was a blast. Really great to have you here and you sharing your personal experience over such a long time with us. And it was great. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you back sometime, maybe for another podcast. Let's see.
Thanks for the invitation, Carsten. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.